Chapter 6. The most important instrument for building a house. Me, the impatient children's voices poured out. All right, Vud said, nodding. Tell me one at a time, and each of you name no more than 2 animals' life's purposes. One at a time, the children jumped up from their spots and spoke quickly. Cows and goats give milk. They eat grass, and every day they come to a person so that he will take the milk from them. Donkeys and horses are meant to haul a person when he doesn't want to walk on his own 2 legs. Chickens and ducks walk around somewhere and fly around somewhere, but nearly every day they come back and lay eggs so that a person can come get them. We need a mammoth to lift heavy things or move or carry them to a place the person shows him. The children were already going around the circle for the 3rd time, striving to recall the life's purposes of all the animals they knew. Finally, Vud posed a new question. Who can tell me under what circumstances animals work together and in what way a person directs them? The very same red-haired little boy addressed those present, saying, Can I tell? And, hearing no objections, he looked at Vud. The latter nodded in assent. Animals start working together when a person wants to build himself a home. Footnote. The Russian word used here is dom. Throughout Anasta, this word both refers to the physical structure in which one lives and also carries the sense of a place where one can feel at home. I have translated this word as home throughout the book so as to preserve both of these connotations and also the sound of the Russian original. Now the person uses a fife to direct the animals. First, he plays calling a tune, and various animals come to him, and birds fly over. When they come, they sit down not far from him, and they wait. That's the way our forebears taught them. When he finishes playing the calling tune, the person looks affectionately at all of the animals and bows to them, and all the animals that have little tails all wag them joyfully when the person looks at them affectionately. And the ones that can't wag their little tails express joy in some other way, because the nicest thing for all of the animals is when a person looks at them affectionately. Then the person makes a different sound on his fife. Right away, the bears run out from the group of wild animals and start digging a pit in the ground, right on the spot where the person has marked with twigs. When the person thinks the pit doesn't need to be dug any bigger, he makes a different sound on his fife, and the bears go back to their spots. When the new sound is played, the mammoths place stones in the pit that the bears dug. The whole time, a whole lot of swallows are circling about in a chosen spot, very impatiently waiting to hear their tune. And as soon as the person begins playing their pretty tune on his fife, the swallows race off every which way and come back again and again. They bring tiny little bits of dirt, straw, and fluff in their little beaks. Everything they use to build birds' nests for themselves, and they lay what they've brought on the top of the stones until they've got a wall of the home. The little boy stopped speaking, and Vud saw that Anasta had once again gotten up from her spot and raised her hand with the palm facing him. Vud gave Anasta permission to speak. Sorry, I lost my place. Teacher Vud, I want to ask you whether the building of a home is considered pleasant and interesting work. Yes, of course, Vud answered. It is the very pleasant and creative act of a thinking person. Teacher Vud, then why are children categorically forbidden to engage in this pleasant and creative act? Vud knew of Anasta's obsession with the idea of building her own little home. At home, she had brought up this topic with Vud many times, but he would always patiently explain to her why children were not allowed to build homes. Now she had posed her question to Vud in front of the children and adults alike. Clearly, she had a reason for asking. She's thought of something, Wood concluded, and he began to answer. If children, especially those who have not fully grasped the essence of the universe, pick up a fife and begin playing with it, they might unwittingly distort the tune, and the animal builders will get confused and not know what to do. Teacher Wood, may I show you something? Anasta asked. Yes, you may, if it is related to your question. It's related, Anasta replied, and she began to sing. She began singing ever so quietly. She offered up various tunes in her thin little voice, and the very same tunes that adults would be playing during building. She didn't make a single mistake, one of the elders who was present remarked quietly. That's right, she did not make any mistakes, agreed another. But you know, she's only heard that tune once, stressed the elder who was sitting on a fallen tree in the last row. The little girl has a good memory, he added. When she was done singing, Anasta asked Wood, Teacher Wood, did I make even a single mistake in even a single tune? You did not distort the tunes, Anasta. You reproduced them with total accuracy. Then I've removed the first obstacle? Let us say that you've removed it, Wood admitted. But there are also other conditions. One of the children may be allowed to build a home as an exceptional case. This can happen if that individual, in this case, one of you, tells about the design that they have conceived, and the elders pronounce this design innovative. Then they may permit the home to be built as an exceptional case and as a model. Sensing that an extremely favorable situation had arisen and that he could stimulate the creative thought of the children who were present, Wood said, I propose that all of you who wish to do so present your designs in 2 moons' time. First we will discuss all the designs and will pick the best one, and then we will propose to the elders that they examine it and hand down a decision. Wood had not been mistaken. Both the tiniest children and those who were a bit older felt a burning desire to present their own unique designs. They all began whispering amongst themselves, evidently discussing what innovations they might introduce into the methods of building a home that had been worked out over the centuries. Understanding that there was no point in continuing class any longer, since the children were occupied with trying to solve the task that had been set forth for them, and it was unlikely that he would succeed in shifting their thought, which was fired up by its creative search, he stopped the lessons and dismissed those who were present. 2 moons later, the day the children had long been waiting for arrived. Many of them came to this class a bit early. I think it meant to say of, anyway. And without waiting for the older ones, began telling each other what they had thought up. By the appointed time, many parents had gathered at the lesson too. When class began, each of the children, excited, took turns telling of his design. According to established rules, Anasta was to present her design last. Out of the designs presented before her presentation, the best design turned out to be the one presented by a little boy named Alan. He was a good-looking boy, 8 years older than Anasta, a good singer, whom all the domestic animals happily obeyed just the way they would a grown-up. Many of the girls in this settlement liked this boy, including Anasta. Therefore, if he were to win, she would not be terribly upset. Better him than anyone else, Anasta thought. Finally, it was her turn to present her design. Trying not to show her excitement, she began to tell about it. On the surface, my design does not differ much from already existing ones. My innovation is in the wall. In the southern-facing wall, I'll situate a beehive log on it. When the bees start bringing back flower pollen and the sun begins to warm the log hive, the bees will have to fan it with their little wings. Now the log hive will be connected to the house by means of a small opening, and the air from the hive will fill the person's room, along with the scent of flowers. The grown-ups began talking amongst themselves, discussing Anasta's innovation. Finally, Wood made the decision that everyone agreed with. It was decided to present 2 designs to the elders for consideration, Alan's and Anasta's. Anasta wasn't pleased. She did not particularly like being rival to the boy that she liked. The elders came together the next day to consider the designs, right at the next lesson, which a great many people had also come to attend. Anasta's design was deemed the best. The solemn announcement was made by a gray-haired, stern-looking elder, but he did note, "Anasta, we have deemed that your design is worthy of attention. It really does contain an interesting innovation, but we cannot allow you to build the home. We can't turn the building of a home into a child's game. Only a man and a woman who have decided to create a family may build a home. That is the inviolable rule. Do you agree with this rule?" Anasta said nothing. The lump that had risen in her throat prevented her from speaking. She had worked on her design with extraordinary inspiration. She had imagined and even sensed her little home. In her thoughts, she was already living in it, sleeping on her soft sleeping spot, looking out the window at the beautiful flower beds through the curtain woven by a little spider, and breathing in the subtle scents of the flowers that the bees had brought back. Right then, Alan rose from his spot. "Might you allow me to say a word about this inviolable rule?" He glanced questioningly at the elders and then continued. "Of course, it is fair, and it cannot be changed, but there is a way to do things so that the rule will not apply to Anasta." The people and the children were looking at Alan in disbelief. A voice rang out. And just how could that be done? "Allow me to demonstrate," Alan said. An elder consented. "Go on then, show us." Alan walked up to Anasta and stood opposite her. Then he removed the family pendant from his neck and placed it around Anasta's neck. "Will you marry me, Anasta?" he asked. Those present gasped. Anasta was struck dumb. Only her eyes shone and looked over the youth before her, from toe to head. "Do you say yes, Anasta?" Alan asked. Anasta nodded energetically, then quickly took her own family pendant off her neck and held it out to Alan, but he did not take it. Instead, he knelt down before the little girl so that she could place her beautiful pendant on him herself. The people watched what was happening in astonishment. Then Alan took Anasta's little hand and addressed the gray-haired elder, saying, "Now there is no obstacle for Anasta, and the inviolable rule does not apply to her." "All right," the elder began, a bit unsure somehow, "but people come together in order to raise a family. Anasta is still too little. She cannot bear children." "Yes," Alan agreed, "she's little. But she will mature with each day and each year, and the day will come when she will be a fully mature beauty. I am sure that I will see that day, and I will not go back on my decision." After conferring with each other, the elders gave Anasta permission to build the small home under the condition that it would be disassembled after 11 days, since it was not permissible for the home to be unoccupied, and Anasta was not yet allowed to live apart from her parents due to her age. On the appointed day, Nearly all the residents of the family homestead settlement came together on a hillock. Anasta stood beside her flower bed. Beforehand, she had marked out the border of her little home with sticks and twigs. She was very nervous. After all, so many people would be watching her actions, but she was especially nervous because among these people was Alan. Some unique feelings toward this young man had been born within her after his proposal that they join their lives together. The village head walked up to Anasta and opened a pretty case before her. Inside it there lay a fife, the most important instrument for building a house. With trembling hands, the little girl took up the fife, covered several little holes with her small fingers, and brought the fife to her lips. But no tune issued forth. Anasta felt that before beginning, she needed to calm herself somehow. She pressed the fife to her chest and, gazing at the people standing on the hillock, she thought, fast as lightning, about what she could do to calm herself down. But her nervousness was only growing. Then a youth came out of the group of people and headed toward Anasta. It was Alan. He walked up to the little girl and said, "I know this tune too. I can play it. You've laid out where the house will be located and how big it will be. You were victorious in our competition. This means this will be your home, and all I will do is play the tune." With eyes shining with tears, the little girl looked at the stately youth and whispered, with lips trembling with excitement, "I want to do it myself, Alan. Thank you. But I need to do it myself. I definitely need to." "Then listen to me carefully, Anasta. Breathe in some air and hold your breath. Hold it for as long as you can and then exhale, not all at once, but in 3 steps. Exhale the last time so that as little air as possible remains in you. After that, begin to breathe evenly. From your very first breath, you should only think about your breathing. Forget about everything else around you, and as soon as your breathing settles in normally, begin playing. I will stand behind your back and look at the people on the hillock. I will not let their glances and thoughts through. I will not allow them to touch you. And you, calm and confident, will build your perfect little home." Anasta did everything just the way Alan had instructed her. She brought the fife to her now calmed lips and the calling tune filled the space. After a bit, the wild animals began gathering from the forest and the pastures. When enough of them had gathered, Anasta brought the calling tune to an end, went to the middle of the oval and marked the walls of her future little home, and began playing once more, a different tune now. 3 bears immediately came out of the group of animals, and hopping, ran up to the oval Anasta had drawn, walked around it in a circle, sniffing, and started digging a pit alongside the twigs that Anasta had laid out. They were trying very hard. Suddenly, 2 little bear cubs just couldn't hold back and jumped into the pit that their mother was digging. Thrown off, Anasta stopped playing. Everyone froze in place. Then the she-bear grabbed one of the cubs by the shoulder and, giving it a slap, set it down outside the pit. It rolled off, head over heels, and she went through the same procedure with the second cub. Then she roared at them as a warning, looked at the little girl holding the fife, and waved a paw in her direction like a conductor. And Anasta began playing the fife once more. When the pit had been dug, Anasta changed tunes. There rang out low, sedate, and rhythmical sounds. One after another, mammoths walked toward the pit, each carrying a stone with its trunk. The mammoths placed the stones and continued their work until they had filled the entire pit with them. Now the fifes Low rhythmical tones were replaced by modulate resembling the twittering of birds. Sorry, modulations resembling the twittering of birds. The swallows that had been circling above the building site suddenly disappeared as if on cue, but reappeared before long. They landed on the stone, first here, then there, laying down something from their beaks. The little feathered builders were able to bring just a tiny bit of building material in their beaks, but there were a great many of them, and they carried out their actions unusually swiftly and in unison. And so the walls of the home grew before everybody's very eyes, accompanied by the fife's melodious modulations.